Number 10. Pirate Model. Kelly Russell, a 31-year-old woman from Dallas, surrendered herself to the police after she was caught on video stealing over $5,000 worth of packages from her own neighbors. This was back in 2018, when porch pirates really started becoming a thing. Kelly was actually one of the very first people to be called a porch pirate by the media, helping to coin the phrase for future thieves. Because this was at the beginning of the wild crime craze that would see thousands of packages stolen from doorsteps, she managed to get away with it for quite some time. But she didn't get away with it forever. When Kelly was arrested on a totally unrelated traffic violation on January 11th, the police searched her home. They discovered a massive number of stolen packages valued over $5,000. However, they believe the amount of the property she stole could have been worth up to $30,000. There was undoubtedly more stuff she had stolen previously that the cops didn't find at her apartment. According to her neighbor, who watched the police take the stolen things out of her apartment, there was so much stuff that it filled 2 trunks and 2 back seats of a pair of police cruisers. In her defense, Carrie said she had fallen on hard times. She had medical bills, she needed to pay for overnight hospital stays, and she couldn't even afford a car even though she worked 3 jobs. And so, like so many other people who fell on hard times, she resorted to stealing things from people's porches. In the end, she was sentenced to 2 years behind bars. Number 9. Revenge of the FedEx driver. On Tuesday, December 17, 2019, in Philadelphia, a FedEx driver was shot while trying to make a delivery to somebody's house. It was about 7 o'clock at night when the driver parked outside the home and walked up to deliver the package. What he didn't know was that a robber was waiting there to steal whatever the driver was delivering. But rather than wait until the driver dropped the package and left, the thief pulled out a gun and shot the man in the abdomen. In a twist of events, the injured driver then pulled out his own gun and shot the porch pirate. This was like a scene from a really bad movie. The injured thief, even with several bullets in him, hobbled away with the stolen items. Police tracked him down in no time, as he didn't get very far and was bleeding to death. They took him to a local hospital, where he was pronounced dead shortly after. But the driver managed to pull through, as he was also taken to the hospital, where he recovered from his injuries. As for whether or not FedEx drivers are allowed to be cruising around with weapons, we don't actually know. A FedEx spokesperson said they were not at the liberty to discuss the details of internal policies. In other words, your FedEx driver could very well be driving around with a shotgun on the passenger seat. Number 8. Dirty diapers. In response to a particularly creative revenge against a porch pirate, police in Hazelwood, Missouri, have discouraged the transfer of body fluids. Their warning came after a Missouri family had 2 packages stolen from their porch in less than a week. Security footage from their house showed the same thief sneaking onto their porch in broad daylight and stealing the stuff they had ordered online. The mother of the household, who was asked not to be named, said that she felt violated and that she and her family wanted revenge. So, in December of 2019, they set a trap. They planted a package on their porch specifically for the thief to steal. But as you can probably guess already, there was nothing in the package the thief could sell. The family put a pair of dirty diapers in it, filled the diapers inside out, and then sealed them in the Amazon box and left it by the door. Right on time, the thief returned the next day. They stole the clever packages full of feces, a special surprise from the mother's infant daughter. And as an extra kick in the pants, the family turned their surveillance footage over to the police. The cops managed to track the suspect down a few days later and arrest her for theft. Number 7. Porch bomb. Traylon Mason was the young man who became the victim of a deadly package bomb in Austin, Texas. He was described by Austin Police Chief Brian Manley as an outstanding young man, a guy who was really going places in life. But on Monday morning in March of 2018, his life ended when a package exploded. The package that killed Traylon was one of 3 that exploded in the Texas capital over a period of 10 days. 2 people were killed and 5 others were injured, all because of an insane backwards porch pirate who was leaving deadly explosives at people's front doors. The devices inside the packages were pipe bombs rigged to explode the second they were opened. Traylon had no idea that when he picked up the package and took it inside, his curiosity would set off a bomb directly in his face. An exhaustive police investigation finally led authorities to the bomber, a man named Mark Anthony Condit. Just as the police were closing in on him, He recorded a 25-minute confession on his phone, though he never explained why he targeted his victims. The packages seemed to be dropped off completely at random. The police caught him leaving the hotel, followed him along the interstate, and then Mark crashed into a ditch and was blown up by his very last explosive device. Number 6. An unexpected thief. It was late 2021 when a woman in Connecticut became the victim of a porch pirate. Betsy Lockhart had previously installed a doorbell camera for this very situation. Porch pirates had been plaguing her neighborhood, and she wanted to be able to have video evidence if it happened to her. But here's where things get hilarious. She knew the package had been delivered on a Monday. It was a gift she purchased for herself, a pair of hoop earrings from a store on Amazon that she picked up for a sweet Black Friday deal. But when she got home to pick up the package, it was no longer on her porch. She was furious and went immediately to the footage from her doorbell camera. Lo and behold, she had her porch pirate red-handed. But this was no deranged thief peeling away in a broken-down Pontiac. It was a possum. Betsy was literally robbed by a possum. He scrambled onto the porch, grabbed her package with the earrings in it, and then took off. Betsy's husband looked all through the night with a flashlight for the possum. The pair reached out to the neighbors, but the thief was long gone. They never found the box, and they never saw the possum again. The little bugger had gotten away with her $90 earrings. So if you see a possum scurrying around with hoops, you know where he got them. What's the craziest thing you've ever seen checking the footage from your doorbell camera? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to hit subscribe if you haven't already. Number 5. Insane Ohio crime spree. Melissa Bergman of Mason, Ohio, went on an insane 2-day crime spree in which she stole packages from at least 12 houses. She was convicted of 12 misdemeanor counts of theft in 2017 and has since spoken out about the incident that landed her 30 days in jail. First, Melissa apologized on Facebook. Then she went on live TV and tried to explain why she ran around the neighborhood for 2 days stealing as many packages as she could find. Melissa admitted that what she did was wrong, but that her head wasn't in the right place. At her initial trial, she had tried to plead not guilty by reason of insanity. However, the court quickly threw that out because it was pretty clear she wasn't mentally deranged. She may have been a bit brain dead from stealing packages from people, but she wasn't criminally insane. The truth is that Melissa did have some mental issues, but not in the way you might be thinking. She's a military veteran who served in Afghanistan and suffers from PTSD. She believes that after she stole the first package, mind you with her kids sitting in the backseat of her minivan, she became hyper-focused and couldn't stop. She told her interviewers on WLWT that it was the same kind of excitement she got in Afghanistan when put into a life-or-death situation. It was a thrill she'd been lacking ever since getting back from overseas, and she just ran with it. Still, that doesn't excuse her poor behavior. It also doesn't excuse the fact that after she was arrested for being a porch pirate, she was charged in a different case for stealing a credit card from a man she met at a hotel. Number 4. Stuck in the snow. A man in Brampton, Ontario was arrested in early January of 2021 when his getaway vehicle got stuck in the snow. The 33-year-old thief had been in the process of stealing a package off someone's porch when their car became immobilized. You see, he had parked on a curb, but driven into a huge load of snow. The thief grabbed the package, got back in his Toyota Yaris, and never made it back onto the street. Luckily for all of us at home, the epic fail was caught on camera. The victim of the thief walked onto his porch and started filming. He called the thief dumb and laughed as he got himself unstuck and peeled backward, only to plow into a snowbank and get stuck yet again. The victim called the police. The man got out of his car and tried to push it free, but it was all in vain. The police showed up several minutes later, and the thief was still struggling to get his car off the snowbank. He was arrested on the spot, then later charged with 1 count of fraud and 1 count of theft. Plus, his car definitely got towed, which means he couldn't have got it out of the impound again without paying a huge fee. Number 3. A bad choice of shirts. A porch pirate in South Carolina showed up to his court hearing wearing the exact same shirt that he wore while stealing packages. He went on a crime spree in the Goose Creek neighborhood wearing a very distinctive green shirt with a North Face logo on it. He was caught on camera driving around on his bicycle and stealing things off people's porches. He was so easily identifiable that the cops had no problem tracking him down and making an arrest. But here's where things just get silly. If he was hoping to walk out of the courtroom a free man, he probably should have at least changed his shirt or tried to put it inside out. He showed up to court and stood before the judge wearing the exact same shirt he was wearing when the police arrested him days before. We don't know what kind of sentence he got for his thievery. However, a Facebook post from the Goose Creek Police Department said, "Sometimes people actually do make our job easy." Number 2. Foiled by a teenager. A man in Utah got creative in late 2021 when they found themselves on the wrong side of a Porch pirate's thievery. Justin Bankhead was furious after several packages were stolen right from in front of his house. In just 1 week, he had several $100s worth of goods stolen from his own property. He offered a reward of $500 for any information that could lead to the person, and it was his son who took him up on the offer. His 14-year-old kid came up with a scheme to catch the thief in the act. Cody Bankhead set up a fake package with a GPS tracking device in it. Early on Monday morning, a man drove up to the house, ran up the stairs, and swiped the cardboard box. The family pulled up the tracking information and called the cops. They were then able to track the suspect's movements as he fled, relating them in real time to the police. The cops easily pulled him over and arrested him for theft, and Cody earned the $500 award for catching the crook. And number 1, wardrobe malfunction. A porch pirate in Texas had a bit of a wardrobe malfunction while in the middle of committing a crime. It was March 10th, 2021. The woman was in such a rush to steal the package from a stranger's front stoop in broad daylight that she didn't seem to mind the fact that her ladies were hanging out of her shirt. Yes, the woman ran up to the front of the house with her crop top malfunctioning and a girl's free and flailing with her frantic motions. She also happened to be in sweatpants and bare feet, and she wasn't wearing a bra. Now, the thief is obviously allowed to wear whatever she wants. It's just a little funny that her half-naked daylight robbery was caught on a doorbell camera and then uploaded for millions of Americans to watch and laugh at. The homeowner gave the footage to the police, who were working to track the thief down. They got a pretty good look at her face in the vehicle, as well as some parts she would probably have preferred to keep to herself.
10. Painted masks. A pair of influencers were arrested in a foreign country for a prank that went very, very wrong. One of the pranksters painted her face during the height of the pandemic in 2021, instead of actually wearing a fabric mask. The culprits are Josh Paler Lynn and Leah Sin. They staged the ridiculous stunt by going into a supermarket, with Leah having the bottom half of her face painted blue and white to look like a mask. This was in Indonesia, in Bali. The influencer managed to make it past the security guard and into the supermarket, but that was when they got busted. It was pretty obvious that Leah didn't have a mask on, and that the pair were up to something no good. They couldn't stop giggling, they were filming, and acting generally suspicious. Now, Josh is a Taiwanese content creator who defended his actions by saying it's his job to entertain people. Leah, on the other hand, didn't have any kind of excuse at all. The Russian national had her passport confiscated, as did Josh, and they were brought to an immigration center where they waited to be deported back to their respective nations. Indonesia really doesn't mess around when it comes to breaking their laws. And they really don't like tourists who break laws on camera because they think it's funny. Both of them were deported off the island as soon as possible. 9. Fake officer. If there's one thing you should absolutely never fake, it's being a cop. A man was arrested in South Carolina for impersonating a police officer in June of 2021. The impersonator made the major mistake of pulling over an Assumption Parish sheriff's deputy who happened to be off duty. Vincent Marks turned on his flashing lights as he was driving behind the off-duty officer. The officer pulled into the parking lot of a convenience store, and Vincent blocked him in. He then approached the deputy and flashed a fake badge, but the deputy immediately recognized him. The deputy had seen Vincent before in a domestic incident that he'd been called to earlier that year. The jig was up. Vincent was busted immediately and hauled off to jail. But Vincent wasn't the only guy recently impersonating an officer. On March 4, 2022, another man by the name of Jason Brittenstein was arrested for posing as a cop and trying to extort an undercover cop, a real undercover cop, for inappropriate favors. The undercover officer was part of a sting operation to pick up Johns at a greasy hotel in Westerville, Ohio. That was when Jason showed up as one of the Johns. But rather than offering money in exchange for intimate time alone with a woman, he identified himself as a police officer and started making demands. He said that if she didn't do what he told her, she was going to be in big trouble. In other words, this guy was posing as a cop to try and cheat prostitutes into giving him free service. 7. Catfishing the teacher. A pair of students bullied their teacher so effectively in 2017 that it made national news and ruined the teacher's life. It's one of the most bonkers stories that you're ever going to hear, so you better strap yourself in. It all started in North Carolina when Brian Joshua Anderson and Brittany Renee Luckenbaugh decided they were going to humiliate their French teacher. That teacher, David Laughinghouse, was 51 years old at the time. The teenagers were only 16. They assumed a single fake identity, uploaded this identity to a social media site, and started catfishing their teacher. The catfishing worked so well that they managed to trick their French teacher into believing he was having a relationship with a real adult woman. In this case, the teens really got the last laugh. Through their fake profile, they convinced their teacher to send naked photos of himself. Then they shared those photos with their classmates and spread them across the internet. The 51-year-old man, who had been working at the high school for 16 years, was immediately suspended. And considering everyone has seen him naked, he's probably never going back to the school again. He was bullied out of his own job by his own students. The teens were arrested and charged with misdemeanor disclosure of private images, but they were released soon after on $5,000 bonds. 6. COVID-19 Pokemon. A man in Georgia was recently sentenced to spend some time in jail after he illegally obtained relief money for COVID-19 and used it to purchase $57,000 worth of Pokemon. His name is Vinath Odemsine from Dublin, Georgia. He pleaded guilty in October of 2022 to one count of wire fraud. He submitted false information to the United States Small Business Administration when applying for a coronavirus relief loan. He claimed to own an entertainment services business, saying he needed money to help him through the pandemic. In reality, this guy was a total faker. He received $85,000 from the loan program, then used it to buy a Charizard. Yes, Vinath spent all that money on a single Pokemon card worth $57,789. He could have bought a house, he could have bought a brand new car, or he could have even invested that money and actually started a real business. Instead, he bought a single Pokemon trading card, a large red lizard that became wildly popular in the 90s, for an impossible amount of money. Of course, people are allowed to do whatever they want with their money. If you want to save up $50,000 to buy a piece of cardboard, that's perfectly fine. But this guy cheated. According to the U.S. Department of Justice, Vinath claimed his non-existent business employed 10 people and grossed $235,000 a year. But it was all a fraud, and now Vinath is paying the price. He was given 3 years in prison and ordered to forfeit the card that he had purchased. He was also fined $10,000 and forced to pay $85,000 in restitution. 5. Tricking Girl Scouts. Sometimes faking it can be funny, but not when the Girl Scouts are involved. A man in Oregon has been busted for tricking Girl Scouts by purchasing their cookies with counterfeit cash. What a tool! A police report was filed by Tiffany Brown on February 16, 2020. She was furious because a man had given her daughter fake money to purchase a box of peanut butter tagalongs. And because the local troop does not recoup its Girl Scouts for any lost profits, all the money for the cookies came out of their own pocket. It was an absolutely despicable crime, and one thing fake money should never be used for. You can't just go around tricking Girl Scouts. Luckily, the victim was able to give a great description of her robber to the police. The cops then worked with a local Walmart to identify the man the next time he arrived at the store. His name is Camden Stevens Ducharme, and he's been arrested on charges of theft and forgery. 4. The fake doctor. A man in India pretended to be a doctor. He didn't walk into hospitals and perform surgeries on people while in his doctor disguise. Instead, the man named Bidhu Prakash Swain pretended to be a doctor to trick middle-aged divorced women into marrying him. He prowled dating sites and social media, built up a whole fake persona for himself, and swindled at least 14 women into tying the knot. But after the marriage was official, that's when things went wrong. The fake doctor would leave the woman saying he had to travel for work. But when he took off, he carried as much of their money as possible. And if you're thinking to yourself, what kind of crazy person would fall for this? The truth is that a lot of people do. According to the FTC, romance-related scams tripled from 2016 to 2020. During the year of 2020, when everyone was locked down in their houses, victims lost somewhere around $300 million being swindled by a cyber romance. Each victim sent, on average, $2,500 to a random person on the internet. As for our fake doctor, he's been on the prowl since 2002. According to India Today, he got married for the first time in 1982 and has been scamming people most of his life. It was a big success until 2020 when one of his wives uncovered the truth about him. When the police launched their investigation, they discovered over 10 stolen ATM cards, different government identification, and fake school certificates. They even found evidence of a different scam where he had been tricking students into paying him cash to secure admissions to certain courses. 3. Anna Delvey. With Netflix's new dramatized documentary, Inventing Anna, the star of the show has gotten a lot of attention. The series on Netflix fictionalized the case of a very real faker, Anna Delvey, aka Anna Sorokin. She moved to New York in 2013 and used her new identity to pretend to be a wealthy German heiress. Amazingly, it worked. She embedded herself inside New York's social scene even though she didn't have any money. She managed to skate by with nothing except her confidence holding her up. In truth, Anna was born in Russia in 1991, moved to Germany in 2007, arrived in London in 2011, and made her way to America, all without any real worthwhile cash. Her first attempt at getting rich involved tricking investors into coughing up money for a fake foundation. When that didn't work, she faked bank statements to show she had access to over $60 million in Swiss bank accounts. She used these fake documents to apply for loans. All the while, she was staying at extremely fancy hotels without ever paying the bills, all while running around with some of the richest people in the city. It all came crashing down on October 3, 2017. That was when Anna was arrested as part of a sting operation and charged on several counts of grand larceny. She was given 12 years in prison. As of 2022, she's still sitting in immigration, waiting to be deported to Germany. 2. Stem cell therapy. Patricia Ashton Durges was elected in November of 2020 to represent Christian County in Missouri. This might shock you, but she was already under investigation for going on local TV and trying to sell stem cells as a cure for COVID-19. Apparently, the community wasn't all that concerned about the ongoing investigation when they elected her. Patricia was already a state lawmaker and a medical professional, and yet she couldn't help herself when it came to a little bit of scamming. She went on local TV and put advertisements on Facebook claiming to provide her clients with a safe and natural cure for COVID-19 using stem cells. It's a lot to unpack. First of all, stem cells are questionable. We don't even fully know the power of stem cells as a treatment for illnesses. But Patricia took it to a whole other level, as she didn't even use stem cells in her stem cell miracle cure. She purchased amniotic fluid from the University of Utah, marketed it as stem cells, and then charged up to $1,450 per milliliter. She raked in about $200,000 for treatments from between December 2018 to May 2020. She didn't only cure COVID-19 with her fake stem cell shots, but also things like kidney disease and Lyme disease. Basically, she had a cure for anything with a fake shot of amniotic fluid. This fraudster was recently indicted by a grand jury. Hopefully, she'll be put behind bars soon before she can trick anybody else. 1. Fake astronauts. Two men wearing homemade spacesuits managed to swindle over $150,000 out of a businessman in 2018. These fakers claimed to have a deal with NASA and said they could generate electricity from nothing but thunderbolts. The dynamic duo were a father and son team, Virender Brar and his boy, Nitin Brar. They told their victim that they were about to sell a very powerful device to NASA as soon as it was ready. All they needed was a little bit of seed money. They duped at least 30 people around the capital of Delhi into giving them cash to help in their endeavor. They tricked people by already looking rich. They also showed off a lot of fake technology that didn't mean anything and strolled around in their fake astronaut suits. When police raided their home, they found a laptop and printer, foreign checkbooks, fake identification, and random stickers saying things like anti-radiation. When the victim was asked why he gave them so much money, he said he was tricked by the fact that they were wearing expensive watches and driving luxury cars. He believed their spacesuits were real and that they were very close to finalizing a deal with NASA for their new technology. In truth, the father and son team had made their spacesuits out of tinfoil. They were just a couple of phonies who preyed on some businessmen who didn't know any better.
Number 10. Shailene Woodley. In 2016, actress Shailene Woodley was arrested in North Dakota while participating in a protest against an oil pipeline project. Shailene recorded her arrest as it happened on livestream. If you're not sure who Shailene is, think Divergent, or The Fault in Our Stars, or even The Secret Life of an American Teenager. She hasn't got a lot of work in the last few years. It may have to do with the fact that she went to a construction site with about 200 other people to protest the pipeline, which was due to cross 4 states. She was just one of 27 people arrested on charges of criminal trespassing and participating in a riot. It wasn't really much of a riot, more like an angry group of people who weren't interested in having a pipeline rip up the sacred indigenous land and damage the environment. The actress was just 24 years old when the cops arrested her. As the arrest was happening, with 40,000 people watching her live stream, she said the cops had singled her out because of her fame. But in the end, she didn't really get in that much trouble. Things are going pretty well for her nowadays anyway. And last we heard, she's dating football star Aaron Rodgers. She also hasn't gotten in any big trouble since the pipeline incident. Number 9. Ryan Coogler. When Marvel's Black Panther came out, it was an enormous hit across the globe. This was partially because of how great a director Ryan Coogler is. He, the amazing actors, and everyone involved in the film made it a huge hit. But in January of 2022, Ryan was arrested for attempting to rob a bank. Wait, what? Yes, the director of one of the biggest movies of the past decade was apprehended by the police when he requested $12,000 in cash from the teller at a Bank of America in Atlanta. You can bet this never would have happened to Chadwick Boseman. May he rest in peace. The problem with being a director is that even though your name is on the movie, nobody really knows what you look like. The bank teller definitely didn't know who she was dealing with, and she called the cops to report a robbery in progress. It all started because Ryan handed her a note that said he wanted to withdraw the $12,000 from his checking account. The note asked if she could count the money somewhere else, as to be discreet. We don't know why he wanted the money, but that's none of our business. We also don't know why there was a black SUV with 2 people in it waiting for him outside. Again, it's none of our business. For some insane reason, the cashier thought she was being robbed, even though he asked her to take the money out of his checking account. She called the police. When the cops arrived, they put the director in handcuffs and arrested the people who were waiting for him in the SUV outside. Ryan was understandably upset. He was in Atlanta filming the sequel to the first Black Panther when the arrest happened. We don't know exactly what unfolded afterward, but know that Bank of America apologized profusely. Ryan also said that the bank worked with him to address the situation to his satisfaction, presumably meaning he was handed a nice stack of cash for his troubles. Number 8. Lil Kim. Lil Kim, the famous rapper, was sentenced to spend 1 year and 1 day in prison back in 2005. She was also given a fine of $50,000. And it was all because she lied to a federal grand jury to protect a group of friends who were involved in a shootout in 2001. 1 year and 1 day might seem like a long time, but it was a lot better than the 20 years she very well could have gotten. Her punishment was considered lenient. The rapper's real name is Kimberly Jones. The shooting she was involved with happened when her group crossed paths with a rival group of rappers called Capone and Noriega. One of the songs the other group had recently released contained an insult to Lil Kim, which was apparently enough to make them start shooting at each other. It happened just outside the radio station Hot 97, with one man getting injured, but nobody actually dying. When questioned about what happened, Lil Kim said she didn't know the men involved, but it was a lie that she revealed by video footage showing them together, as well as eyewitness reports. Lying to the judge about a daylight shooting put Kimberly behind bars. Number 7. Oscar Pistorius. Oscar Pistorius was labeled the most inspirational man in the world in 2012. He was the very first disabled man to run alongside able-bodied athletes at an Olympic event. He represented South Africa and actually came pretty close to winning. He didn't win, but it was still historic. He almost became an Olympian, even without proper use of his legs. The one cool thing he did get out of it all was his nickname Blade Runner. Alas, Oscar's celebrity status came crumbling down the year after. On Valentine's Day in 2013, he got into an argument with his girlfriend, Reva Steenkamp. She locked herself in the bathroom of their home in Pretoria. As she was hiding from him behind the door, he pulled out his gun and shot 4 times through the wood. When he finally got the door open to see what kind of damage he'd done, Reva was dead. When questioned by the police, Oscar tried to lie. He claimed an intruder broke into the house and shot his girlfriend. The police didn't believe it for a second, and the investigation proved he was a liar. He was initially sentenced to 6 years in prison, but had that increased to 15 years in 2017. What other cases can you think of when a celebrity role model went so horribly, horribly wrong? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to hit subscribe before the end of the video. Number 6. Devin Rattray. In the 1990 movie Home Alone, Devin Rattray played Kevin's older brother, Buzz McAllister. He hadn't been seen in much time since then, a few shows here and there. But in 2021, he found himself back in the spotlight in a big way for punching and strangling his girlfriend. At 44 years old, he was arrested and charged on 1 count of domestic assault and battery. It happened on December 9th, with police in Oklahoma City being called to the Hyatt Place at around 3 o'clock in the morning. When they got there, a woman told them Devin had beat the snot out of her. He threw her onto the bed, strangled her with one hand, while he used the other to cover her mouth. She bit his hand and strangled to get away, and that was when he started beating her. It was a pretty vicious assault, yet the woman refused to press charges against him. In the end, all the cops could do was make him leave and spend the night in another hotel. There were no arrests made at the time, It wasn't until the police were able to issue an arrest warrant that they could put him behind bars. He had his bond set at $25,000 and was released later that day. Number 4. Tiffany Haddish. Police officers in Georgia responded to a 911 call at about 2:30 in the morning on a Friday in January 2022. They were called because a driver was discovered asleep at the wheel on the side of the road. By the time an officer with Peachtree City came across the vehicle, the woman inside had woken up. The cops pulled the driver over as she was parking in the yard of some random house. As it turned out, the driver was actor and comedian Tiffany Haddish, and she was wasted. She was arrested and charged with a DUI and transported to the Fayette County Jail. Tiffany had starred on a handful of TV shows, but her most famous role was probably in the movie Girls Trip. But for all her fame, Tiffany's life is currently in shambles. In an interview with Entertainment Tonight that came out just before her arrest, she admitted her life is a mess. She said she's been crying a lot. Her dog died. One of her closest friends died. She was separated from her partner after a relationship of over a year, and apparently, all of this accumulated in a drunken night on the road and passing out at the wheel of her car. Number 3. David Koechner. Even if you don't know his name, you definitely know David Koechner's face. He played in The Office, he was in the Anchorman films, and he's been in countless other comedies. You might know him as Todd Packer or as Champ Kind, but no matter which name you know him as, it turned out this guy is a criminal. He was arrested on New Year's Eve in 2022 for drunk driving in the middle of the afternoon in Simi Valley, California. According to what law enforcement told TMZ, they received a phone call from a concerned citizen about an erratic driver. David ran a stop sign in a residential neighborhood, crashed into a median, and then fled the scene. Cops tracked down his SUV and gave him a field sobriety test, at which point they saw he was 1.5 times the legal limit. It wasn't even dark out yet, and David was already wasted and cruising around. He was booked and released later that day, and is scheduled to appear in Ventura County Superior Court at the end of March. Number 2. The Celebrity Gardener. Daniel Malgoires was a famous celebrity in France. He was the most popular gardener in the entire country and the proud owner of the best garden in France. He wasn't exactly a movie star, but he was a pretty well-known guy. He became even more well-known in 2017 when he murdered a burglar during a bizarre extortion attempt on his wife. It happened on the evening of October 5th. The couple finished dinner and 2 men in hoods entered their property. Daniel went outside because the dog was barking, followed by his wife, Francoise. There was an altercation with one of the thieves, and Daniel fell into the grass, covered in blood. His wife was then subdued by the thugs and brought into the house. Shortly after, they brought Daniel into the house as well. That was when they started making threats, saying they were going to beat Francoise if she didn't give them the code to their safe. All the while, Daniel urged her to do what they said so that nobody got hurt. She became suspicious and refused to give up the cash she had hiding in her safe. And that was when Daniel shot one of the burglars at close range. This was a very bizarre case. Daniel had orchestrated the whole thing just to get the money from the safe for himself and to divide it with the burglars. He hired them with the help of a man named Richard Lopp. Richard was given 8 years in prison for helping to organize the burglary. The burglar who wasn't shot to death, Richard Bruno, was given 7 years. And finally, Daniel was sentenced to 18 years for murder at the age of 72. And it was also that he can get whatever his wife was hiding in their safe, even though the couple was ridiculously wealthy and lived on a property bigger than most neighborhoods. And number 1, James Beeks. Broadway actor James Beeks was arrested in November of 2021, just before performing in Milwaukee. He was part of the Jesus Christ Superstar tour, but also happened to have some connections with the American extremist group called the Oath Keepers. Why was James arrested? He was apprehended in connection to the events that took place in Washington, D.C. on January 6th. He was part of the group that breached the U.S. Capitol building. His charges included obstruction of Congress and unlawfully entering a restricted building. James probably didn't think he was going to get in much trouble, considering a lot of time had already passed. Plus, he was doing very well for himself playing Judas in the musical Jesus Christ Superstar. But for his participation in what happened that day in D.C., his career has gone down the toilet. He was suspended from the tour and probably won't be getting much work in the future. When you're part of a riot, you don't exactly come up on the short list for Broadway productions. Thanks for watching. Would you rather have the whole world know about your dirty laundry or spend a month in jail? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time.